I think we should let Christian. He's been very gracious as he's had a very tumultuous last 24 hours, and we're very glad that he can be here to speak with us. And I also just wanted to mention to those of you who are here, and there are a few people listening online as well, that the other person who got to help him, find a place to beam into us was Dan Gable, who will be rejoining us next week, and I couldn't be happier about that. Yay. So things are good, and despite not always going according to plan, and without further ado, I will let Christian move on and tell us about his presentation.
Yeah, so I'm really excited. Oh, thank you. So I'm really excited to be talking to you today. I would ask, I'm not a superstitious person, but if you do have something wooden next to you, maybe you can knock on it, that we will have no troubles throughout here.
I don't know if it's 100% wood.
Yeah, it's fake wood.
These days,
Wood that's glued together, sawdust, that's close enough for me.
In Spain we joke and we go like this.
Right. So today I titled my talk today, Open Media and the Next Frontier in Open Education. And that's a very hopeful title. I actually think that there's a lot of opportunities that I'm going to be detailing today in my talk. And I hope that after hearing my talk today, that you'll see opportunities for yourselves in ways that you could potentially do, whether it's small or larger works, various types of open educational resources that you might be able to contribute to this growing landscape. I'm going to start off, and throughout the talk, I'm going to be weaving back and forth, both in more general kind of discussion about open educational resources, but also specifics of my project, which is called Reality Czech. Just a quick note, Reality Czech, so that is the title of a currently beginning level online, openly available and openly licensed textbook. Although textbook in sort of scare quotes, right? It is a complete first year curriculum. The logo here was designed by somebody in COERLL that I'll be talking about in just a little bit. It's meant to look like a beer coaster. And Czechs are infamous for being the best beer, let's call them the best beer drinkers in the world. They drink beer. They're about 40 liters per capita above any other country. So they are definitely lovers of beer. A few details about the project. So this was a 4-year project to develop a complete first-year Czech course. I've listed some of the things that it includes: grammar, vocabulary, culture units, interactive exercises that are hosted on Canvas, an in-class activity book, interview videos, and additional cultural videos. And it's supported by the Center for European Studies, primarily financially the Department of Slavic and Eurasian Studies, and more specifically within that we have a Czech Endowment. There's a sizable Czech population in Texas, and they in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, gathered a lot of money together and formed this endowment. It's now over $2 million. So that pays for just the interest, pays for a lot of these activities and these programs and various resources that we're developing. And then there's finally COERLL, which is the Center for Open Educational Resources and Language Learning, and they've been very instrumental in providing a number of different resources, both getting some of these materials online, as well as consultation about best practices, etc. Now, when we talk about open educational resources, I'm going to be mentioning Creative Commons, which is a license that allows us to put these materials under this license, and then they can be shared in a way that doesn't involve asking for permission. And I'm going to be actually detailing some of the various stipulations of that license or these licenses in just a second. But I've mentioned this word or this phrase, open educational resources, or OER. And this is something that has become more and more popular, I guess, I would say, over the last decade or so. A lot of us, though, don't really have much contact with open educational resources. We might have seen it in one place or another. We might have taught using some materials, but actually a lot of us, most people I talk to, have never even heard of an open educational resource. And so what I'm going to be talking to us today is how we can create our own open educational resources or take advantage of open educational resources that are already out there. So what's an OER? It can be big and it can be small. So it can be a full-blown textbook, which that is what I'm creating, and more. And that can be a huge project. As I said, this was a 4-year project. And actually it's now in its 5th year because we're expanding it even more in new directions that we hadn't originally anticipated. It could just be a single video, a set of exercises or activities, a set of readings, a compilation of songs, provided that they are under an open license, or it can be all of the above. So really it can be, you know, a lot of us have created things, various assignments or activities for our language classes, and those could potentially become open educational resources, provided that we want to license them and provided that they sort of meet certain requirements about what an open educational resource can have and what it can't have. Now, I'm going to be talking about beer versus the Constitution, right? Not quite. We're going to be talking about free. You know, we talk about open educational resources. A lot of us, the first thing that's really, you know, the selling point for them, what's advertised about them, is that they're free. But we really need to kind of tease apart that word, free. What does that mean? And there have actually been two. It just got loud in here. Is that distracting at all? We good? Okay, I see some nods. I'm hoping that's good.
Yeah, we're in good shape. I wanted to make sure it wasn't on our end, but it's not. I'm just keeping us muted while you're talking.
Okay,
until
cool.
Someone here has something to pipe up about.
Okay, cool, got it. So in the software community, we may or may not know this, but a lot of the software that we use or interact with on a daily basis is actually free software. Things like Linux. If you have an Android phone, it's actually based off of Linux. If you run a Mac, then it was actually based off of BSD, Berkeley Systems Design software. These are all open examples of open source software. And within the open source software movement, they kind of teased apart two meanings of free. Free as in beer, meaning in the sense that it doesn't cost you any money, versus free as, and of course, everybody loves free beer, right? So that's kind of the origin behind that. Versus free as in speech. That's why I put the Constitution there, but it means that we don't have restrictions on how we can use those materials. And we're talking about the latter, free as in speech today. Now, why did I choose to make an OER? It was actually chosen for me, but I would have done it anyway, because I think there are a lot of great reasons to share the work we do. Additionally, I don't think that necessarily, you know, when I tell people the kind of work I do, they'll often say, but well, what about the royalties? Well, my program has, through various course releases at times, as well as summer funding, has provided me with a lot more resources than I would ever have gotten from royalties. In fact, royalties on a language textbook from everybody I've talked to who has undertaken such a project are rather slim. But what else do I think is really important? Well, I think as language educators, and I come this especially from the perspective of a LICTL instructor, and any of us who teach less commonly taught languages know that we often kind of are more like islands. We don't really, we kind of exist out there on our own. We're maybe the only faculty member who teaches a certain language or specific language at our institution. And so we just are kind of surviving on our own, trying to figure out whatever we're going to use, how we're going to build our programs. And I think we can sort of change this paradigm into one where we share materials. But if we want to share materials, they have to be correctly licensed. We can't just share materials that are based off of copyrighted materials. So why did I call it Reality Czech? Well, originally, and as I said, I'm going to be weaving back and forth between my project and some of these more general ideas about open resources. Why Reality Czech? Well, it was originally because we were creating these reality-style interviews that I filmed in Prague and as well as in Austin with native speakers of Czech. They were based off of a set of questions that each unit, so this is one on travel, and has questions like, do you like to travel? Do you like to fly? How often do you visit your family? What do you usually do when you fly? How old were you when you first flew in a plane? Do you like to travel by train? These sorts of questions that you might expect somebody to be able to answer in a first-year curriculum after they have completed a travel unit or while they are working on discussing and talking about travel. And with this, I created these interview videos, and the curriculum itself is actually composed of
Naštěstí mě hlava moc často nebolí, ale asi nejlepší je se napít pořádně vody.
Each of them has a script,
Když mě bolí hlava,
transcript rather, and they were all unscripted videos. So these were all videos that the people were just told, just speak. We're going to ask you some questions and just speak. And actually, this has been really interesting is in that it pause that. In that it really has actually guided the way that the pedagogy, or guided the pedagogy of the course, in that instead of sort of, I think that chapter 3, we should have these topics, and chapter 4, we should have these grammar topics and this vocabulary. It's often been guided by, well, what did the speakers actually say in the videos that I created? So enough about that, although these are licensed as a open educational resource. The meanings of Reality Czech, though, started to broaden. And I started to think about more, what is reality? And one of it was language. Maybe incorporating more non-normative language. And the thing about the Slavic languages is they have a pretty rich case system. And if you wanted to say that good boy or that big table or that clever girl, that small beer, you have to learn all of these forms, and all of the Czech textbooks out there place this huge focus on grammar and let's drill the forms, let's learn all of these. And after a while, that didn't seem realistic. We weren't teaching our students how to communicate. And so after having kind of emerged from this system that's pretty prevalent among the Slavic languages, I thought, and here's another click that and then of course you have to learn the plural of all these. Additionally, Czech has this high variety of standard Czech, but then there's this whole dialect situation where well, we have this low variety. What about these forms? These aren't typically taught in Czech textbooks, but they were coming up in our interview videos. Additionally, culture, we tend to talk about canonical content that ends up being in our textbooks. So we have, things like, well, Czechs love beer, they eat goulash, they read poetry by Nobel laureate poets, and they love Václav Havel. Well, that's the picture that we get from a lot of textbooks out there, but is that reality? And so really, throughout the textbook, I wanted to avoid this kind of caricature that we often see of the cultures of the languages that we teach. And instead, I started moving towards something that I called reality. And I achieved this by mining the internet, your YouTube videos, for all sorts of open content. So all of the videos that you see here have been placed under an open license, a Creative Commons license. And so really what I wanted to actually stress with this is that I found that we should really talk about a new type of authentic Czech culture. And Czechs like yoga. They like to go to chocolate festivals, or they like all sorts of things. So why can't we include this kind of stuff in our textbooks? Yet we weren't finding it before now. And so really that's where we have Reality Czech. What can we find that's out there that, that can make its way into the curriculum and provide a more realistic picture of the language and the culture. The course is run with it's a flipped classroom. So for example, they have a pre-class component, an in-class component, and a post-class component. As you can see here, for every day of the, for every classroom day. So here's an example of what you would see on Canvas, or what the students would see. They complete, they do various readings on whether it's grammar or culture or vocabulary, and complete various Canvas assignments. And this leads to really a better learning environment where they have individualized pace. They can take as long as they need to learn the materials, opportunities to repeat, and they get immediate feedback. I get feedback, and eventually down the line, we can even create individualized assignments. And we get more time for valuable classroom activities. So here are some of the examples of pre-class materials. Now you notice there's a lot of images used in here, and all of the images that you see here are available online, and they're under an open license. And so what that means is I am freely available to use those in my pedagogical materials. And for most of them, all I have to do is provide a citation. They also make their way into Canvas exercises. So here is a pre-class Canvas activity where they have to fill in the blanks. Now, I of course make use of a lot of open resources out there. So here, Wikipedia, or even just linking to websites. For example, the website of a restaurant that happened to be featured in that exercise. So the students have a much richer experience with the target culture. I also use a lot of things like Quizlet in the curriculum as part of pre-class. Now, in class, we do a lot of different activities, and you see again a lot of these images being used in here. And again, these are all freely licensed images. And so this is what a typical day in class looks like, going through the various exercises and activities that I've created, using open resources to enrich the experience for the students, to provide them with some sort of stimulation, some sort to ground the various things that we're talking about within the target culture, etc. They do all sorts of in-class games that I've developed that are all available as a open educational resource. And then they have a post-class component where they do all sorts of written exercises that get them to dive even deeper and use the language in active ways. Now, I mentioned these licenses, Creative Commons license. There's also what's known as the public domain. And these are things, so the public domain can be things that have that were either created a long time ago. Typically it's 70 years. So 70 years after the death of an author, they enter into the public domain, although that has gotten a little bit tricky more recently with copyright extensions and the like. But there are a number of different Creative Commons licenses. I've given you the various licenses up here. If you look at the far top left, you have CC, Creative Commons by, and that's a pretty common license. And what that says, if some sort of video or photo or drawing or text is licensed under that, then all I have to do is provide attribution to that person. Going over to the right, you see CC by SA. So I have to say who it's by, that's the attribution part, but I also have to share alike. So I have to put whatever I use that photo or video in, I have to also license it in the same way. A lot of the material that you find on Wikipedia, which includes tons of authentic images of places, landscape, people, etc., is under the share alike license. So they're trying to basically say, use our materials, that's great, but we want you to also share your materials with other people. There are other stipulations like NC, which is non-commercial. Then they can start adding them together, non-commercial, share alike. That can be a little tricky because once you put it under a share alike license, your work has to be put under the same license as the whatever resource you use. So if I find a photo that is CC by NC-SA, that means it's non-commercial, share alike, I have to also put my work under that license. And this gets really tricky because I can't actually combine different types of share alike licenses together. They are actually incompatible with each other. The good thing is not too many people out there put their work under these license where they put more than one stipulation or more than two stipulations on them. The most common ones are CC by, share alike, and CC by no derivatives. That's at the bottom left. So that means you can't Photoshop our image. You can't change it in any way. We want it to remain the way it is. So what I wanted to then is move directly into the practical applications. How do we find open content? Because a lot of us are maybe thinking, so I've created various lessons. Where do I find the good stuff? And a lot of it can be found by looking at some of these various sites that I've given here. And I will let you know that at the end of this, I will show you where you can get a handout from my faculty profile at University of Texas. And I have links to all of these resources. So these kinds of materials are available on Flickr, Open Clipart, Wikimedia Commons, Public Domain Pictures, LibreShot, Pexels, just to name a few. And on these, you can search for mainly pictures and drawings. And I love to take these and I love to have fun with them. So I create all sorts of memes because that's using the language of our students, right? Our students use memes all the time, so why can't we? And so I like to have fun. Some of them you see are you don't know what these say in Czech, but for example, the wolf says, I have, literally, I'm hungry. And there's an expression in Czech, to be hungry like a wolf, kind of like I'm hungry as a horse or something like that. In other times I use these to kind of converse with the students and teach them Czech phrases at the same time. And sometimes I even comment on the grammar or give them helpful mnemonic devices or hints on how to remember things. So for example, the third person plural of to eat is irregular. How do you remember that? Well, every single student, when they see that, it's pronounced in Czech, jedí, they are eating. But everybody sees what? Jedi, right? So what I was able to find lightsabers and cookies, a freely available image, right? So why am I showing you that besides to show you how dorky I am, right? And how I love to incorporate kind of nerdy images into my curriculum. I'm showing you that if I can find Jedis and cookies, you can probably find a lot of stuff out there that you might want to use for your curriculum. There's tons out there. There are millions of images that are available and are under an open license. Now, images aren't the only thing that we can find. We can also find video, and I've actually found or had a lot of success finding really awesome video content. So just as an example, so using video sites that we're familiar with, like YouTube, as well as Vimeo, we can search for content that is under a Creative Commons license. So if you go, if you search for something and then you click filter, and you see here I've circled Creative Commons, you can select Creative Commons and it will only return search results that are under a Creative Commons license. Then you can actually verify that on the video itself where it's listed at the bottom, licensed under a Creative Commons attribution license. Same thing on Vimeo, although it's a little bit more complicated with Vimeo. Here you can see on the bottom left where it gives, or sort of on the far left, it says license. On Vimeo, you have to select which of all the different licenses you want to search for. So you sometimes find yourself searching under multiple licenses. However, I found a ton of really, really useful materials on Vimeo. And it's actually become one of my go-to sites for finding videos. Now, how do we actually find the content though? I mean, what do I search for? Well, I'm going to start by talking about some international words. And these international words, you might be surprised by some of these. Vlog, time-lapse, haul, unboxing, room tour. These actually, you don't have to translate them or do anything. These actually yield a ton of results. And I'm going to give you just an example. So first, let's look at vlogs. So vlogs, a video blog. There are tons of videos available. These are just some of the ones that you see. So the top left, you see somebody, she's about to bake. I don't know, or I don't remember what. The top right, the video screen that you have might be covering it. I'm not sure if you can see it, but here's somebody talking. You know what? I can't even remember what she's talking about. Bottom left, you see a recipe video, and the bottom right, you see two Czechs who have posted prolific videos, they're rather prolific producers of videos, and they are, I believe, in Italy there. So what's great about this content? Well, it's usually addressed directly to the viewer, which is a lot different than, for example, feature films or maybe other content that we might be used to using. And they address the viewer in a very natural way, because this is, after all, natural content. They're not trying to simulate anything. This is their way of creating content and interacting with the world. They're typically really, really passionate, and they post like crazy. For a while, I was getting, before I turned off these notifications, I was getting crazy notifications on my phone. Somebody has posted a new, this user has posted new content. So you really can't keep up with them. And so I mentioned vlog, and all you have to do to find this content is type vlog and then type some sort of word in the target language. So here, vlog cestování, which means vlog traveling, or vlog Vánoce, which is vlog Christmas, yields all sorts of really cool results.
Ahoj,
and you saw that couple here.
A já jsem Lukison. Před pár měsíci jsme se rozhodli, že pojedeme do Vietnamu.
Hrozně to uteklo, za týden odlétáme.
Během toho našeho plánování jsme vymysleli, že budeme dělat videodeník.
A všechna ta videa budeme dávat sem.
Jedou s náma ještě dva kamarádi, Bára a Tomáš.
A máme v plánu Vietnam projet od severu na jih.
So here you see, Vietnam. Now what is that doing in a Czech curriculum? Well, Czechs travel, don't they? And actually, it turns out this segues really wonderfully into the topic of, there's a large Vietnamese population in the Czech Republic, and so there's a lot of different discussions that can be had about this. But in general, we can use somebody's vacation videos that they've put under an open license, and these actually these particular producers, they create some really slick content. So what happens when I find one of their videos? Well, I go to their channel and I find dozens and dozens and dozens of videos that they've created. And you can keep going with this. So you might find that only one or two of their videos were listed as a vlog, but then you click on their channel and you find all the other content that they've created. Here happens to be a news channel in the Czech Republic. Here is another news channel and cultural programming channel on YouTube. And again, there are just hundreds of videos that they've created under an open license. Now, the next international word that I mentioned were time-lapse videos. And so here, for example, you see a time-lapse video. A few seconds of this. So, and maybe if you can unmute the audio just for a second. I'm wondering, usually I like to make my presentations a little bit more interactive. It's obviously more difficult using Zoom. What do you think? How could we use a video like this? Any ideas? How about I show you how I use it? I'm going to show it in a second, but I just wanted to show and sort of demonstrate how I've created, or how you can, so these are various time-lapse videos, and I put all sorts of different cities in there. And you can see, for example, at the bottom, in the middle, you have a bunch of, you have, for example, something written in Italian, but they use the word time-lapse, and I've found that you can use the time-lapse in almost any language, and they tend to yield a lot of results. So how do I use these videos? Well, I use that in the first chapter. So on the left, you see that very same video, this time-lapse video of Pilsen. And I incorporated into the discussion of the plural. So they watch this video the night before class, and then they just check off the boxes. What are the things that I saw in here? Now, it doesn't end there, because the next day we watch another one in class. And in this, for this exercise, they start calling out in class the things that they see. So it is at a very, very, very preliminary or very introductory level at the very beginning, just 2 weeks into language instruction, they are already interacting in what to the students is a very meaningful way with a video in the target language. Now, you saw earlier I showed some clips of a chocolate video, and here I take that video and I break it down into various parts and created an assignment on it. So here, for example, they get questions about who in the video says that they are addicted to chocolate. Then we have their own question. We all talk about it together. Who among you is addicted to chocolate, right? And so they always get a kick out of that. And then all the people in the video talk about what kind of chocolate they like, whether they like bitter chocolate or milk chocolate or white chocolate, etc. So we can create activities in class that we sort of riff off these videos that we see or that we find. Here was another activity that I created. This girl loved to post various videos of her in outfits that she had put together. So here is, and it's a great Czech word now, outfit. So 3 work outfits that she's created. And so she has work outfit 1, work outfit 2, work outfit 3, and she goes through the whole video describing her different outfits, what she likes, how she put it together, etc. And while the students can't understand everything she says, they are able to pick out words and phrases, and then we're able to discuss them together and talk about, well, what do you think looks the best on her? What do you think is her best outfit, etc. And it leads to a really fun and rich classroom discussion. So what I want us to do is think open, right? We talk about being open or open-minded, but I'm using this obviously in a second sense, thinking open in how can we use open resources? A lot of us go into our language teaching, with the very correct idea of we need to focus on developing proficiency, right? Through speech, reading, writing, listening, speaking, right? And a lot of times we see these curricula out there where we come up with an idea, and I speak from my own personal experience. Well, I have an idea of what needs to be in a curriculum, and so I create this very convoluted machine of all the things that I need in there, or that we need in there. But I want to actually encourage us to take the farmer's market approach. And what do I mean by that? Well, I love to go to a farmer's market and I like to see what's there, what looks good. And then I start to think, what can I make tonight? And oftentimes I create something that would have been better or is better than if I had just taken a recipe and said, well, I need this and I need that. Well, the carrots aren't looking good today, but it's in the recipe, so I have to follow the recipe. If we take this farmer's market analogy and we say, what's out there, what's good, and how can I use it? Then we can take these various pieces and put them together and create a really rich idea out of them. And so that's really been my approach in designing an open curriculum. It's what can I find out there, and how can I develop this into something great, or at least good? I'm hoping for great. So there we have it, Reality Check. And what I want really is then through this, I'm hoping that we can learn some lessons. At least I've learned some lessons. In creating a curriculum like this, I feel that I have actually been able to approach something that more mirrors, faithfully mirrors reality. And so with that, I invite you to ask some questions. I don't know how I'm doing for time. Usually I can see a clock, but today I have no access to that since I'm full screen on here and in the Zoom session. So how am I doing for time?
You're in great shape. It's 4:50, so we have time to take some questions, absolutely, and discuss as much as folks want to discuss. And aside from the folks in the room with us here, I know there are a few who've been watching online the whole time. So to them, I say, up to you. If you want to shoot the question out in the chat, I can moderate. But if you want to pipe up on Zoom, that works just as well too. So I'll just open it to everyone. Any questions for Christian?
Yes.
A question and sort of an observation, but I'd like wonder what your response would be. When you showed a little bit of your curriculum, it looked like, or at least I thought that was what it was. Or was your assignments page you showed us? It looked like it was a lot of it was what I would call grammar topics.
Yeah.
Whereas taking the material and working from it seems like you'd have a syllabus, sort of notional, functional type syllabus.
So yeah, so I think you're probably looking at thinking about this page right here. Is that correct?
No, there was another one that had. It went by fairly quickly, and it looked like it had singular words and this verb and stuff like that.
So
list of assignments or something.
Yeah. So
anyway,
so some of that is. I mean, I don't think that we should not teach grammar. I think though that it should be structured around communicative topics. So most of what they're doing is very communicatively focused, but sometimes they need some. I mean, you know, Czech grammar is very different, and it's very very difficult for them to structure ideas and thoughts without having some sort of orientation to how the grammar functions. So sometimes I do have to do some overt instruction of grammar. I think the way that I would differentiate this approach from what is very prevalent among the teaching, especially of the Slavic languages, is it's not grammar first. It's how can grammar play a supporting role in creating communication. So a lot of times, you know, I'll give you an example. You know, Czech has this elaborate case system, and you'll have, you know, chapter 7 is the genitive chapter. So we're going to learn the genitive, and we're going to learn every single way that you can use the genitive. Whereas here, we do need to learn the genitive endings. There's just no getting around that, right? We need to be able to use them. There are a bunch of endings we do need to be able, you know, to be able to use. But they're taught specifically within the context of we need to perform this function, and so because we're going to be talking about, for example, or you know, the dative, for example, is the to case. So and just the other day in class, we were talking about clothes. If you want to say, you know, that shirt looks good on you, you literally have to say that shirt is suits you. Well, they can't use that construction at all unless they have the endings. So they do have to have some sort of background on those endings. So we do have something where they, before class, so none of this is actually part of the class instruction, but instead what they do is they go over the endings the night before, they do a little bit of practice, and then in class, we just talk. And so that's really what the classroom is all about, just practice, 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 but in a very communicatively meaningful way. Does that sort of answer your question?
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so you don't really, it's not really a notional functional that you have a list of speech functions that you're moving through. It's from the situations and interest and sort of character of the materials that you have, then you talk about those.
Yeah, I mean, for example, you know, for example, the weather chapter. One of the things that we talk about is, you know, what kind of clothes do you wear when it's snowy outside, right? And this is a common kind of question that we might anticipate needing to answer. What do you usually wear when it's cold out, or what do you wear in the summer, or what kind of clothes do you like to wear? Well, they do need, you know, this comes up in the Reality Czech videos, the interview videos where people are answering these questions. And it just turns out that they're using certain grammar, and so they do need to. So yeah, it comes up in that kind of way. I hope I'm answering your question.
So you do have a chapter called the weather.
Yes. So the chapters are the weather. The chapters are the food. There's a chapter that is school and education. So they're based around topics.
Topics, yeah, that's kind of notional, you might say.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Other questions from the crowd here?
Yeah.
I have questions a bit more that are a bit more technical, even political. I could say, like, how do you convince your colleague to work on this kind of project? Did you work on your own for this project, or did you work with a team? Because the problem is that I'm all for open resources myself, but it's very hard to have colleagues work on this kind of projects with you, because very often it's a lot of work. And also so it makes it complicated because of that. And also, like, to explain people that there is a point into having free things online, because most people feel that, you know, they are working for free in a way. They don't like that, I think. So
did they hope to get rich off them?
Yeah, I think no, but
yeah, that's always my big question.
When I talk about it with my colleague, the first thing I always hear is, well, you want to work for free, you want to give all your work for free online, which for me is not exactly what it is, I think. But also, like, when you think about the amount of money that our students pay in books that which money doesn't even go to the authors of the books, you know, that really bothers me. But for some reason, like, nobody that I know, not many people at least around my colleagues, seems to care about those questions. So how do you make it important for them?
I'm going to echo the, you know, as I said this earlier, are you trying to make money off of these? I don't know. I think it's awesome when somebody uses my materials. It's great, right? I mean, maybe we just need to all kind of step back and think, you know, what's wrong with somebody using my materials? Yeah, I worked really hard, but people are going to know, hey, those are the materials that were created by so and so, and they're really awesome. So this guy must be or you know, this woman must be a really great instructor, or they have a really good grasp of pedagogical techniques and things like that. I don't know. I really love it. In terms of getting colleagues to work with you, so I do work alone on this, and it is tremendously difficult to get. You know, I've had a few contributions here and there from other people, but unless you've bought in to the project and you're passionate about it, then yeah, it is hard. I will say, though, that, I mean, this is daunting. When you look at all the materials that I've made, it just seems like, who has the time for that? And the answer is not too many people. But we do create small things here and there. And that's why I wanted to stress, or I really stressed at the beginning, well, an OER can just be that 2-page assignment. And I think the one thing, I mean, there are OER repositories out there, but we're not necessarily searching those repositories to begin with. So we don't, if somebody were to upload something there, we might not know. We need to find better ways to to publish our materials that we've created, so that other people know about them and want to use them. Yeah.
Hi, Christian. My name's Lisa. I work here at the Language Resource Center.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi, thanks so much for the presentation. And sorry you couldn't quite make it to Ithaca, but you're very much here. I coordinate the shared courses with Yale and Columbia, and we're offering Czech through the Shared Course Initiative. So I'm working on outreach for that on campus, and have identified some constituencies on campus, for example, in linguistics, comparative literature, film studies, media studies, who are interested in Czech language. But I'd just love to hear if you have any ideas particularly for outreach for Czech. I'd love to hear.
Yeah. So first off, I mean, we've also kind of looked into how can we share our courses. We are actually looking into right now having a university extension so that people from other universities can directly enroll in our courses. We already do that for a number of our languages. In terms of so you're specifically asking about outreach in what sense? Making more people.
Finding more students.
Finding more students. Yeah, that's a tough one. We struggle with enrollments ourselves, and we have a huge Texas Czech community. Right now I usually get between 5 and 10 students in first year Czech, which is great. It's a lot of places get 1 or 2. We are trying to figure out how we can spread the word. This year, oddly enough, it was just putting posters all over campus. I got several more students just by doing that. But a lot of the
heritage. We certainly have heritage students here interested, but I'd like to do more outreach for it to find more students.
We have played around with the idea of going to high schools, because there are communities where 40% of the population in that community is of Czech heritage. It's a big job to try to. Usually the high school guidance counselors are overtaxed as it is, so trying to get them to hey, you should go to UT and take Czech classes is not really high on their priority list. We have been playing around with the idea of getting retirees who live in the community to maybe go and drop off some sort of informational materials. But trying to get the word out, if we can, maybe we can figure out something together. Because right now we also are kind of struggling with how do we keep our enrollments up? But certainly I think we do not currently have a study abroad program, and the University of Texas makes it a little bit more difficult to have a study abroad program that students from other universities would be able to attend. We're currently developing a study abroad for Prague, but it wouldn't be language based or centered around language. So it's, it's a tough one.
That's really helpful though, thank you. Particularly the high school and the retirees idea.
Yeah, we'll see if it works.
Okay.
We have someone on Zoom who wants to ask a question, so I'm just going to unmute Joanna here. We should be able to hear her.
Hi, Joanna.
Hey, Dick, and hello, everyone. Hi, Christian.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Great. I did want to get back to Claire's question about why do OER, right, if you're not making money from it. And I wanted to bring in another aspect of that, which is that keep in mind, these are materials that are being hosted, in fact, in a sense, published, right, by institutions. And there are a number of institutions like COERLL, that are federally funded. COERLL and also at University of Arizona are 2 examples, right? There are 16 federally funded universities that language resource centers that do this, and that many of them have as educational mission to support and publish OER. So these are materials that are quality materials that are not just someone on their own posting something to YouTube, right? I mean, these are pedagogically sound and quality materials. So most of us outside of that context would probably not publish a textbook. go to a publishing house. It allows us to do something that is outside of the dominant paradigm of publishing. If you want to go beyond classic or standard textbooks, which have become problematic because they're so static and tend to be outdated very easily. OER, you can change and update, all the time. So there are a lot of reasons to go OER and to not think in terms of, gee, I'm not making that money, but you are, as Christian mentioned, having a lot of resources given to you through COERLL. Since I published my textbook also through COERLL, I have a team of people who help me in publishing materials. It's phenomenal.
Yeah. No, it really is. I would recommend that anybody who is interested, I think so many of us do create something here and there. And so I would really encourage you to consider putting it under an open license and then searching for a venue to share it with others. And COERLL is one example through the Flight project, where you can submit a flight assignment and then have it reviewed and then published through COERLL. And that Joanna knows more about that than I do.
Do you know of teachers in other languages that have used this focus on available Creative Commons and other licensed materials and have done extensive materials?
I know that we have used, there are several languages. So for example, Français Interactif is a French textbook developed at the University of Texas. There's also Deutsch im Blick, which was developed at the University of Texas. I don't know how much they use open materials that exist on the internet already. They are certainly openly licensed. However, just in perusing the materials, I don't believe, and part of it has to do with when these materials were created. There's just so much more opportunity now to access and find these kinds of materials. My problem a lot of times is I have too much. So I need to find which ones I want to use and which ones I just, for some units, I have a list of 30 videos and I'm using 4 of them because that's all we really have time for and that's all the students can even handle. So I don't know of anybody who's using it to the extent that I am, but there are certainly, there are certainly other textbooks that are using them. I just don't know if they're using them in a major way like this.
Are there ever restrictions that you have to use an entire video as opposed to excerpting a short piece that we'd be more likely to do for beginners anyway?
So the one thing that is a little bit of a problem, so first in terms of licenses, I have not ever found a video that was under the no derivatives stipulation. So a no derivatives ND on the CC license would say that you can only use the whole video. I've yet to find that. I'm not saying that they don't exist. The bigger issue, and with photos, it's really easy just to copy and paste the photo right into your work. The bigger issue actually right now is with videos. YouTube used to make it really easy to take a Creative Commons licensed video on YouTube and make it your own. It was through the YouTube video editor that existed until September of 2017. And using the YouTube video editor, you could search for other videos that were licensed, and then you could import those videos into your own account or into your own video that you're creating. Since they got rid of the YouTube video editor, they also got rid of that function. And because of that, they have, they're currently sending very mixed messages in terms of Creative Commons support. On the one hand, they let you license your videos, and they specifically say videos licensed under a Creative Commons license can be edited for other users to create their own projects, etc. On the other hand, the YouTube license restrictions, or rather the YouTube terms of service, say you cannot download a video from YouTube. They had, and they've since removed this advice. And the only way I know that, the only proof that we have of it is that if you look at the Internet Archive, you can still find it. They had a piece of advice on there that you could take you could contact the original publisher of that video and get them to share that video with you, but they have since removed that advice. So it's really unclear what YouTube is saying. On the one hand, if they're letting you license this video material under this license, then they should make a way that you can get it. Now, there are ways to download YouTube videos. There are plenty of sites that let you insert the URL. There are ClipGrab is a program that lets you download videos. Perhaps some of us have used those before.
Perhaps.
Video downloader.
Yes. Yeah. So is that a violation of copyright? Probably not, because it's been licensed under been put under a license that allows you to reuse those materials. Is it a violation of the YouTube terms of service? Definitely. I have contacted the creators of videos and asked them if I could use their content. And as you would expect from anybody who's licensing their video under a Creative Commons license, the answer is always yes, sure, of course. However, nobody seems to understand, hey, can you share this? Can you upload this video to a cloud sharing site and share it with me? After all, they all know, as we know, that you can just use one of these programs to download the videos. So it's one of these absurd things where, right? I mean, people are happy to give you to publish these materials. They're happy to put them out there, and they're happy even to say, yes, I would love it if you would use these videos. That's why I put it under this license. But then asking them to do extra work is, so it's a tough situation. Vimeo, as the last time at least that I looked at their terms of service, does not have any stipulation on downloading. Additionally, they even make it so that you can, if certain pro accounts let you download videos or provide a download link, but you need to have one of their pro accounts to do that. However, as I said, they don't seem to have any stipulation in their terms of service that would make it so that downloading videos is a violation of them. So it's a tough situation right now, but I guess it's for us all to find our own sort of solution to at the moment. I probably shouldn't recommend a a course of action, but
so that brings me to sort of a larger philosophical question about it, and I'm not sure if you really have an answer for this, but it's something I think about. And when I see Creative Commons, I think of sort of something that from the early days of the internet was sort of seen as the inevitable end of that technology, the democratization of thought and creativity and that sort of thing. And we've seen that it's not really borne out that way as much as I think some early users of the internet thought it would. And we see things like YouTube, even in my lifetime, I've watched it go from something that's completely free and for everyone and democratic to being commodified really aggressively. So I'm interested, especially in education, if you see sort of these two tacks of there being this for-profit model and this I'm making it so that everyone can use it, if you see those as different modes of thought that can run parallel and coexist, or if you see them as necessarily in conflict with each other and that one is going to have to win out over the other or be crushed or that sort of thing. I'm wondering if you've had thoughts about that or if it's been a concern.
I mean, my short answer is I think it's great that people have a choice.
Sure.
So I think it's awesome that there are, I mean, even if with all the complaints I just made about YouTube, sorry, it just probably got loud in here, didn't it?
People are very excited about Creative Commons.
Right, yes. So, you know, as much as I just complained about YouTube, it is still a site where you can put videos and license them under a Creative Commons license. Same with Vimeo, same with Flickr, and with Media Commons. I think, you know, I think clearly Wikipedia is a resource that nobody ever could have imagined, and it was made possible through openly licensed content. On the other hand, I'm gonna somewhere. Nope, that's loud over there too. Well, we will just.
Well, we're doing okay. We're hearing you all right.
Yeah. In any case, I think they can coexist, and I think the real what I don't want to happen is that these options get hidden. So as long as there are avenues for people to and that people are encouraged, hey, you know, this is an option for you, then that's great. It would be a real shame if, for example, if one of the great resources like Flickr for images suddenly stopped making that an option for users to license their content under a Creative Commons license.
What does it mean when you watch a YouTube video and there's a commercial before it? Does that mean you can't download it? Does it mean it's not Creative Commons? Does it give you different attitude or rights or possibilities of using it?
I think it just, all it means is there's a checkbox in your YouTube account where you can essentially monetize your content. Now, I don't know if you probably can. I think that option still exists for my Creative Commons videos. It's one of those things that would be kind of funny if somebody monetized their Creative Commons videos because somebody else could take them and also monetize them. But as far as I know, there's no restriction on monetizing Creative Commons content, and also one does not need to monetize content that's under a standard YouTube license. So they are kind of they're not mutually exclusive, as far as I understand.
And how about using, for the sorts of purposes you use videos from YouTube, using ones that don't have a Creative Commons license?
So when we can, yeah. And this is, I mean, we all probably have used at some point an advertisement or a music video or something, and those are not under Creative Commons license, and we can incorporate those into an OER. I, in fact, do that sometimes. So, for example, with a song, I can't include the lyrics of the song, and I can't include the video directly in my materials, but I can link to it. And so I can create an assignment around that, and I frequently do this. That involves, it might be questions, or it might be a vocabulary list, or it might be a couple very short phrases that I excerpt from it. But I can't take the whole content and integrate it into there. It has to be, I have to link out to it. And so sometimes I'll do that. I'll say, look up the lyrics for this song, and then, you know, look at it together. Find, you know, what words or phrases do you recognize? Things like that, as sort of one aspect of the assignment. Maybe the first, you know, the first thing that they do is they just recognize, you know, what words do I recognize? Okay, and then then I kind of, as I said, build off of it, kind of riff off the content.
I'm gonna have to go.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I have to go, unfortunately. But it was a great discussion. It was wonderful. We learned a lot of things tonight.
Oh, well, thank you.
Thank you.
In the old days, I always, when I was lab center director and a teacher said, oh, I want to use this YouTube video in my materials, I'd say, well, we'd better download it for you because if it's on YouTube, it could go away any day.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah,
and that's why that.
Well, so that's what I think is the beauty of the Creative Commons license, is that with this, I can, YouTube terms of service aside, I can make sure that video never disappears. So I can actually host that video myself in my own channel. And so, yeah, that's the real beauty of it, because, well, if it's a video and I can link to it, then what's the, who cares, right? I can still make it part of my curriculum. But just
when you say put it in your own channel, do you ever download a copy of the video and then re-upload it, or is it just somehow behind the scenes YouTube manipulation?
I have, yes. So I've created some abridged versions of videos. As you mentioned earlier, sometimes we don't want to use the whole video. So I've created abridged versions, then uploaded to my own channel. Right now I've left them as, so one of the settings you can put on YouTube is it's a private video. So people, if they searched for it, wouldn't find it, but I can still embed it into my own content. And so the only way you would ever find is by going to the Reality Czech website, versus you wouldn't search for it on YouTube. So not private, rather, but unlisted. So so for those, I'll often keep that content as unlisted. I'm not sure if I'll continue to do that. There's no reason why I would have to do that. It's just, it's what I have currently chosen as a strategy. So, but yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's openly licensed, so you can do, as long as you follow the license restrictions.
Do you see much stuff disappear? Oh, that's really nice, and then you go back a week later and it's gone?
I see it the most off of Flickr. So Canvas is really great in that you can create Canvas quizzes and you can search for images directly using from Flickr. And then what it does is it actually, it doesn't actually import the photo over to your Canvas site. It just links to it on the Canvas site. And so what ends up happening is you sometimes get some broken links or broken, you just see the outline of what used to be a photo and an X mark. And so what we actually did with those, and we need to go back and because I've created a lot of content since then, but we took all those photos, downloaded them, and then relinked to our own copies. It's a lot of work though. It's a lot of work to do that. I mean, in a typical Canvas quiz, and every day the students do, I hate the word quiz, by the way, but exercise, right? But they call it a quiz. In a typical Canvas exercise, I might use a dozen images, and they might complete 4 or 5 of these on a daily basis. And so you can just kind of extrapolate from there how many images there are to, and that's why I also want to stress, I mean, I'm getting paid, I'm getting summer pay to work on this. And I think that not a lot of us have the time to work on a huge project like this, but by working on a huge project like this, I've gained a lot of valuable experience that I can then share with other people and say, hey, you can still do this at a small level. Just follow these steps, search in these places, search in these kinds of ways. And I didn't go through all those tips today, but some of the tips, for example, if you're looking for really good realia, look on Flickr, look on Wikimedia Commons, and you can search directly in the target language and find all sorts of really great stuff. So yeah. Any other questions?
What? I've always got more questions.
You always have more questions. Go ahead, ask one more question.
Well,
close this out.
I think a lot of teachers don't use still images that much. What do you see as the value or the use of still images in classroom. Like your average quiz, I think, around doesn't have an image for every question. It's just got a question.
Yeah, I do have an image for every question. I have an image for every example. And I think the value is that black and white text isn't really immersive. And I think providing images to all of your examples, to all of your content, to your activities, etc., really immerses the students in a way that, I mean, black and white text can just be boring after a while. And it keeps the students excited, interested, and also just, we are dealing with concepts, not just words. And so we really want to illustrate those concepts in a way that's evocative of what we're talking about. And I have seen, I mean, I don't know which approach it is, or which part of my approach, or if it's the whole thing. I have gone from having students who had really great difficulties speaking to my whole class every day now is just a huge, long discussion in the target language, and we laugh and we have fun, and they're immersed within the target culture. And so I think having images to such a great extent, especially pulling from the target culture, just really engenders that kind of outcome. So yeah.
All right.
And yeah, it is so simple to find these images. And actually, the one thing I guess I didn't mention was the easiest way to do it is just Google image search. And you can, instead of going through all those sites, you can also just go through Google image search, and you can find those types of images. Let me just point you to one last thing here. If you go to my, so if you just Google my name and then go to my faculty webpage, you'll notice at the bottom it says download a handout on open educational resources. This is actually from a previous talk, but the content is the same. So I think you'll notice that the title is different, but the content, it would be the same in terms of the resources that I provide there, the different sites that you can go to. And so, yeah, go ahead and click on that. And the handout itself is also openly licensed, so do whatever you want with it.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, Christian, I know this was not quite the way we planned things to go, but we're so grateful that you could still connect with us and talk with us, and we really appreciate it. And I hope you do get to go have a cheesesteak before you catch your plane.
Yeah.
If that is your want.
On the other hand, you would have had a great dinner here in Ithaca, so.
I know, I'm really bummed. You know, it's funny, I had this whole plan of, and I don't know if the weather would allow this, but am I correct in understanding there's some good walking trails?
Yeah. Yep.
I was really looking forward. I mean, it doesn't get cold very often in Austin, and I like the cold actually. So I was really looking forward to a nice cold walk.
Some nice breweries and wineries too.
That sounds really lovely. Well,
maybe the cheese... next sabbatical you can come here for a semester or something.
Yeah.
And explore. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, no, I'm really bummed about it. But I guess the cheesesteak will have to do for now.
Yeah.
Moosewood next time. Moosewood in Ithaca next time.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds lovely.
Yeah.
It was very interesting, Christian. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for being an audience. Thank you. Really appreciate it.